What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a late edition of Go Talk Markets presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. Germ is in pinch hitting for me tonight. We've got a stacked show talking all things NFL and AFC South, NFC and AFC South, as they are going to be the two worst divisions in football. But we got to talk about them because they're in the NFL. So we're going to talk about Bryce Young. We're going to talk about C.J. Stroud. We're going to talk about Derek Carr, Tampa Bay, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for stuff about sports. Not stuff about sports. Go Talk with Marcus. Well, maybe it's both. Next.
Give them a shot to do what?
Germ, my man. How you doing?
Baby. We good out here.
It is
trying
always
to make it happen.
It's always fun when it's just me and Germ on the show, whether it's Talk Markets or stuff about sports. It's always a good time. And as I mentioned in the opener, we are talking about the two worst divisions in football this year, unfortunately, but they are a part of the NFL, and somebody's got to do it. So we're going to do it.
Yep.
Let's start by talking about the Texans, who actually did make a little bit of improvements this offseason. A lot of it, of course, has to do with the draft. When you draft C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, you're bound to improve on what you had the year before. But specifically looking at C.J. Stroud, did the Texans make the right move going for C.J. Stroud? Like, what can we expect? Can we finally get a long-term franchise QB in Houston? Because it was supposed to be Deshaun Watson, but we all know what happened there.
So I am of the belief that you draft based on need. And if we go back, if you take Deshaun Watson out and you go back to the history of Houston Texans quarterbacks, you had your Ryan Fitzpatricks and Davis Mills and some of these lackluster guys. And, if you draft a quarterback and if it doesn't work out, you draft another one. I draft a quarterback every year until you see what you need to see. I don't believe in this. Yep. Give him some time. A lot like, who has it and who doesn't. These guys, you draft a guy, even if they have a bad season, right? Justin Fields, perfect example. Didn't have the greatest of, starting out, but you see the talent. So you figure it out from there. And so now, and then you get a guy like Sam Darnold who, had 60 starts, you see who it is. The Jets moved on, right or wrong move, however you want to say it. But so I think they needed a quarterback, period. They had to replace Deshaun Watson. This quarterback class was good. And so they chose the best quarterback for them they felt was available. So they went with them. If a lot of people felt like C.J. Stroud should have went number one, a lot of people felt like Bryce Young should have went number one. So if you get one of those two guys, you can't lose, in my opinion. So I think the Texans did the right thing. The most important piece of any franchise is the quarterback. So you go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think the pick isn't a bad one, of course, when you talk about the quarterback standpoint, because the gap between C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, who I think is comfortably the third best quarterback in the draft, it's still a pretty large gap between C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. For me, though, I guess for me, the one thing I'm concerned about for the Texans is the fact that they did trade a first-round pick for next year to the Cardinals. So, they're not going to get a chance really to kind of build on that next year because the Cardinals are going to have their first-round pick, which, I guess, to each its own. I think C.J. Stroud should be, if advertised, the second best quarterback from this draft class when we're looking back on it. Like the 1B to Bryce Young's 1A, essentially, is what we should be having. And if C.J. Stroud is as advertised, then he should be the first quarterback in Houston's history to be there and we never have to worry about it again. Like Deshaun Watson was on pace for that, but then they traded DeAndre Hopkins away for a bag of chips and then he wouldn't be there anymore. And then he had his whole off the field stuff. So if CJ Stroud continues to be an upstanding member of society and the Texans don't sabotage CJ Stroud by trading away key assets and things like that to keep them from succeeding and continuing for them to be terrible, CJ Stroud should be the last time we see a the Houston Texans draft a quarterback in the top 10 unless we're talking about a scenario where CJ Stroud just sucks. And honestly, despite the situation, I don't think there's a scenario where CJ Stroud just sucks. Like he's a really good quarterback and he's a really good prospect. So this should be the answer until CJ Stroud is either fed up with Houston or until it's time for him to retire. I think Houston's in good hands and they'll be okay.
So I know a lot of people were concerned about CJ Stroud's first preseason game. His second preseason game was a lot better. But just to remind everybody, Justin Herbert threw 0 touchdown passes in his preseason, and he ended up winning Rookie of the Year. So again, when I see CJ Stroud, I'm not a big comp guy, but when I see the passes, how he makes them look easy, I think of Joe Burrow, a guy that we're both big fans of.
Yeah,
I'm not saying CJ Stroud is going to be Joe Burrow. I'm saying the way CJ Stroud carries himself on the field and makes some of these passes that are pretty remarkable look effortless. It reminds me a lot of Joe Burrow in that sense. So, take that how you will, Texans fans, if there's any of you that exist. But I think CJ Stroud is going to be okay. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too. From one quarterback that should be okay to one quarterback that we don't know if they'll be okay. Anthony Richardson, again, obviously, clearly the third best quarterback in this draft, but still, of all the quarterbacks, definitely has the highest boom bust percentage. You got to take a quarterback because you didn't like what you saw last year, and obviously they released Matt Ryan at the end of the season, so a quarterback was going to be taken here in the third overall pick, and they couldn't draft up to number 1 to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud. Was Anthony Richardson worth the risk in Indianapolis?
So again, we talked about drafting for what you need. Colts in a similar situation as the Panthers and the Texans. So they took the best quarterbacks available in order. Bryce Young, consensus number 1 for a lot of folks, or NFL folks, I should say. And then the next best was CJ Stroud. Like there really wasn't. It was basically, what do you like? Do you like CJ Stroud's remarkable accuracy, but some of the other stuff not quite caught up? Bryce Young seems to be the most well-rounded, good pocket presence, can make it work with his size. Or do you want Anthony Richardson, freak athlete, even though his talent is not refined yet, like a lot of Josh Allen, Cam Newton comps. So it depends what kind of offense you're going to run, depends what you like in a quarterback or what you think you can win with. Yeah, he's worth the risk. I mean, who else? Again, you're the Colts. What else are you going to do? You've already tried the bridge quarterback. You've already tried aging veteran Hall of Fame type player. You tried that. And so you've tried everything. You've tried the good backup who came in from another team and lit it up. And so now you think he can be a starter. You tried all of it. Draft the rookie, build around the rookie. It's a coaching and a front office's job to look at a quarterback, and not just Anthony Richardson, but anybody. Say, okay, this is what he's really good at. This is what he's really bad at, and build your team to fit your quarterback. Yeah, take the chance. You ain't got nothing to lose. So you have disgruntled Jonathan Taylor. You have an aging defense that was really good a few years ago. Anthony Richardson has all of the intangibles. Work on his tangibles, and let's see what you got.
My one concern with Anthony Richardson is the Jonathan Taylor piece. I think when you're talking about a young quarterback, at least for me personally, there's 2 things that I think if you have, they could be set up for success: a reliable tight end and a reliable running back or running game. The Colts have neither of those things, and that's no disrespect to Mo Alley Cox because he is serviceable, but I mean he's not like. He's not one of the premier tight ends in the league. He's not at least one of like those mid-tier tight ends in the league. Like he's a pretty average tight end. And when you have Jonathan Taylor, who is only 24 years old, and there's questions about whether or not he's going to be the running back come week 1. In fact, there's not even questions. The Colts have granted him permission to seek a trade elsewhere. So chances are he won't be on the roster. I know the season starts in like 2 weeks, but like there's a chance he won't even be on the roster 2 weeks from tomorrow when it's time for the season to start, but they play on Sunday, so 2 weeks from Sunday. But like, I think that's important because I think when you look at when you look across the league at a lot of the mobile quarterbacks in the league, right? The Lamar Jacksons of the world, the Justin Fieldses and the Jalen Hurtses, and to a lesser degree when he was in his prime, but in a little bit in his later years in Seattle, Russell Wilson. Like the only mobile quarterback in the league that we have consistently said doesn't have a run game is Josh Allen and the Bills. That's because Josh Allen is the Bills' run game because he does everything for the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately. But like you look at Jalen Hurts, he can run the football. They had one of the best rushing attacks in football last season. You look at Justin Fields. They kind of have things going on, but their running backs have just been dealing with injuries. Same thing for Lamar Jackson. But when Lamar Jackson won MVP, they had a great run game with Mark Ingram and the crew when they were doing like the Heisman package and all that stuff in different sets. So for Anthony Richardson, when you have a guy that is as boom and bust as he is, like there's just a lot of things around him in that first season that have to go well. Like Anthony Richardson, I think, could be the next Trey Lance. And not from the standpoint of like him getting hurt, obviously, and not from the standpoint of him not being proven. But Trey Lance was also a risk. But Trey Lance was a risk because he was just as raw as Anthony Richardson, but he didn't have the actual games played in his career. So we can have a sample size of what we can expect. Anthony Richardson has a sample size of what we can expect from him, but he's super raw. And anything can happen. And when you have an aging defense and when you have an O-line that's been up and down and has been dealing with a lot of injury, like we could be looking at the next Trey Lance where the risk seems worth it because of all of the intangibles like you were talking about. But when it's time to actually get down to the X's and O's and the nitty gritty and being able to deliver on a week-to-week basis, he's just not able to do it. Like there's a reason why Trey Lance is now almost out the door in San Francisco because he's not even they traded all of that for Trey Lance and he's not even going to be on the roster anymore eventually. He's not even QB2. He lost to Sam Darnold, who let some people tell it Sam Darnold's the scum of the earth when it comes to the quarterback, being a quarterback in the NFL. So I think Anthony Richardson and the Colts could be in a similar situation where if Anthony Richardson doesn't become refined sooner rather than later, in 2-3 years from now, we could be talking about, yet another quarterback needs to come into, like they still haven't found their guy, just like Houston. We talk about this a lot as well. Like they brought in Andrew Luck. He was supposed to replace Peyton Manning. Andrew Luck up and retired out of nowhere on him, and they've been kind of scrambling ever since. Anthony Richardson's supposed to be the answer. But like Carson Wentz was supposed to be the answer, and Philip Rivers was supposed to be the answer, and Matt Ryan was supposed to be the answer, and they drafted Sam Ehlinger because he was also supposed to be the answer, and so did Jacoby Brissett, and they haven't had a good string of luck with quarterbacks, and taking a super raw quarterback with an extreme upside, but it's a very shaky one, and a lot of things have to go right. It's a risk that you take, of course, because they, as you said, exhaust all the options, but it is a risk that can set them back several years in a stacked conference that's only getting younger at the quarterback position.
I agree.
Yeah. Titans, what the heck are they doing? They have 3 quarterbacks, and none of them are qualified for the job. For being completely honest,
I like Ryan Tannehill, man. I like him. I mean,
I like Ryan Tannehill. He's not going to win you a playoff game though in 2023. Yeah.
Well, okay, so here we go. Just like I just said, it's up to the front office and the coach to look at your quarterback and say, okay, this is his strengths. These are his weaknesses. How can we figure it out around him? Maybe not. Maybe he won't. But let's not forget, he led the league in completion percentage and led the league in a bunch of other shit. A couple, excuse me, I don't know. I'm sorry. And a bunch of other things in the last couple seasons. And so that wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was only like 4 years ago, something like that. And so, he just was battling injuries and, the team, and then Derrick Henry got hurt one year. So that hurt him. That hurt Ryan Tannehill. Obviously it hurts when you lose your best player. And Ryan Tannehill, he's good. He's a good, solid quarterback. If you're you can't doubt Ryan Tannehill, but then say Jared Goff is going to lead the Lions to a division title. Like you can't.
That's fair.
And I love Jared Goff. You're not going to sit there. Us over at Stuff About Sports, Dwayne, Marcus, you've been there with us. We're the biggest Lions Jared Goff supporters. We want the Lions to do good. So I'm a Kirk Cousins guy. I know a lot of people hate Kirk Cousins, but like Kirk Cousins wins a lot of games. Like it just I don't care what anybody says. So Ryan Tannehill is good enough to win. Can he win it for you? No. He's proven that, but he doesn't have to. He just has to be who he's been. Be healthy, The offensive line hasn't been as healthy, as good as it's been. Now, it is odd that they went and drafted Malik Willis and then now Will Levis. I
Yeah,
don't know what that's about when you have other things that you need to address, but especially when you're not showing that you're trying to move on from Ryan Tannehill. That's the odd part about it. It's one thing if you're drafting him for like, okay, we're trying to get Ryan Tannehill out of here as soon as possible. But that's not been the case for them. It's like, yeah, we got Ryan Tannehill, but we're going to draft other quarterbacks. But you would think they draft linemen or they draft some weapons or they draft something to help the defense. But yeah, I don't know. Titans, I think they just believe in what they've been doing and they think health is the only reason why they haven't been winning the AFC South. And they feel like that's going to change now. So we'll see.
I mean, for me, I would say that's like my big concern is when you've got Ryan Tannehill, who's obviously getting up there in age. You go out there, you draft Malik Willis, and he didn't play many games last year, but he started in enough. And apparently, from what you saw from Malik Willis last year, it was enough to make you comfortable to want to go out there and draft Will Levis. And from what I've been seeing, Will Levis is still slated to be QB3 on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hasn't even been good enough to beat out the guy that he's supposed to be replacing just last. Like he's not even. So it's a weird situation. Also, Will Levis, a lifetime Mayo partnership, dude. Like we can do so much better than that.
I know.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But I think for me, that's my gripe with the Titans is you've got 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Like you obviously weren't sold on Ryan Tannehill because you went out there and you drafted Malik Willis, but you also weren't sold on Malik Willis because you went out there and you drafted Will Levis. And you've drafted these 2 guys, but Ryan Tannehill is still your QB1. So essentially, you've wasted these 2 draft picks on what could have been another wide receiver, especially with AJ Brown being traded last year. Could have been another O lineman, could have been another corner, and like whatever the case may be. Could have been another running back maybe to kind of help take the load off of Derrick Henry. Like there were so many other options in Tennessee, and having 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and you're clearly not sold on any of them. Because if you were sold on Tannehill, you would have never drafted Malik Willis in the first place. And if you were sold on Malik Willis, you wouldn't have drafted Will Levis in the second place. And if you were sold on Will Levis, then at this point, he would probably be the starter. And I don't think the Titans have announced. I think the Titans are the one team that is yet to, aside from the teams that like don't need to announce it, because we know like they're the one team that hasn't actually announced who their starter is going to be, which would lead me to think that it's going to be Tannehill. So then why is Malik Willis and why is Will Levis on the roster? Like that's the confusing part for me. And so when I say like they're in no man's land, it's not because Ryan Tannehill is bad. It's because like he's the quarterback, but he's not the quarterback because you want him to be the quarterback. He's the quarterback because the 2 guys that you picked to replace him just aren't ready yet. But you shouldn't have drafted either of those guys to begin with.
It sounds like to me that the Titans were hoping that they would capture one of those rookie sensations that just come out of nowhere. Tannehill's been solid for the Titans. He's made the Titans a destination. DeAndre Hopkins is there, and he's catching most of his practice passes from Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill's going to be the starter, period. But the problem is he's just simply folded in the playoffs. That's their problem with him. But you can't really move on from a guy who's brought you back to relevance. And no matter what you say about Ryan Tannehill as a player, he was below average, middle of the pack until he got there. And then they were the number 1 seed, and he was winning a bunch of games. And the problem is, much like a lot of these teams or a lot of these quarterbacks, when it's time to put it on your shoulders, he just can't do it. The Titans just have to figure out a way to keep that regular season momentum into the postseason. So in drafting the quarterbacks, maybe they were just seeing like, okay, this guy had a lot of talent. Maybe he can come into camp and just wow us, try to catch one of those nice rookie deals. Then you can move on from Tanner. You can trade him and get other assets, and then you have a quarterback who's really good on a rookie deal. Maybe that's the case. Don't know.
Maybe. But at this point now, you're banking on Will Levis because you've proven by drafting Will Levis that Malik Willis you don't think is the answer, which is I think the difficult part. Which means that we should expect for yet another season that the Jacksonville Jaguars should win this division and win this division. I would say this year a lot more comfortably than they did last year. Last year, it came down to the regular season finale between them and the Titans. This year, I would imagine it's not going to come down to that. There's a lot of people having a lot of positive things to say about Trevor Lawrence and a lot of positive things about, say, the Jaguars overall. One Colin Cowherd thinks, though, that the Jaguars could actually be the number 1 seed in the AFC this year just because of how easy their division is, coupled with how competitive they're expected to be with the Bills and the Chiefs and the Ravens and so forth and so on. Can the Jaguars make the AFC Championship game this season?
Yeah, the AFC Championship game? No.
Yeah.
Not at all. And it's literally nothing to do. They just don't have the firepower that some of the top 3 AFC. They're not better than the Bills. They're not better than the Chiefs, obviously. They're not better than the Bengals. They're not better than the Jets as far as the roster construction goes. So, no, there's no way at all. The Jets, I know Sports PSP just posted a comment. Which QB would you want, Trey Lance or Zach Wilson?
Neither.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose one,
the one that's still on a roster though. So I mean, Zach Wilson. There you go.
Zach Wilson's played 22 games and been awful. Trey Lance has played like 4 games and he won 1. I don't know. Trey Lance. It's hard for me. Trey Lance couldn't beat out Sam Darnold. That's all I keep coming back to.
Yeah,
that's
huge. And that's 2023 Sam Darnold too.
Yeah. So I guess I would have, but hey, listen, Dwayne Marcus, you were there with me. I've said Trey Lance was no good, and I've been.
Oh yeah, I agree. I was right there with you. I had to go on.
Yeah.
I went on a 49ers dedicated show and had to talk to 49ers fans about how Trey Lance isn't the answer, and there weren't some kind words, but like it's the truth. Trey Lance should have never been drafted by the 49ers at all.
Worked out well for the Dolphins, though. But yeah, I'd probably rather have Zach Wilson. I think. So, what were we talking? Oh, so the Jaguars, they're not there yet. I think they need another year of. Again, I like the 3-year sample size. Last year was their first real year of ascension. So give me another year, and then I can talk to you about being a real contender. But then, if you want me to put you in the category with the like right now, they're right below the Chargers category to me. Like, I know the Chargers are going to be a good AFC team. Nobody's putting them as a contender because they haven't proven it yet. But but they've been consistently up there or in the mix in some form of capacity, mostly because Justin Herbert's been excellent from day one. Trevor Lawrence, regardless of how he started, I get he had Urban Meyer. I get he kind of started behind, but at the end of the day, he started out behind. He didn't look good his rookie year. Like, he looked like people were talking about him being a bust. So give me another year of what Trevor Lawrence did last year. Give me another year of that. Let's see where the Jags fall into that, because I don't think the AFC South is locked up for them yet. I don't know how the AFC South's going to. I love D'Amico Ryans. I love what the Texans did. I think they had the best draft of any team in terms of putting their team in the best position on offensive and defensive side. Obviously, we just talked about the Titans. So, and then who's the other AFC South team? It's
the Colts.
The Colts are still rebuilding. So you like, it's the 2 teams other than the Jags. So, no, give me another year of this, and then after this year, let's see where you're at before I start putting you in the category with the big boys.
I would say, just by virtue of the situation, that the Jaguars can make the AFC Championship game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I think so. Of all the AFC divisions, they're obviously in the weakest division. I think that's open and shut, that they're in the weakest division. So their path to a playoff spot, there's only one playoff. There's not going to be 2 playoff teams out of this conference, out of this division. Right. So their path to a playoff spot relative to the other 3 divisions and the other 12 teams in those divisions is relatively the easiest. So they are, I would say, the only team in the AFC that's like guaranteed to have 1 playoff game, because I would say they're the only team in the AFC that is virtually guaranteed to win their division, aside from the Chiefs. But there's still people that try to convince themselves that the Broncos can make some noise this year and all this.
Don't sleep. Hey, Raiders, man. Jimmy Gratz. Don't sleep on Jimmy Gratz.
And maybe the Raiders too. So the AFC South is the weakest division, which, I mean, automatically means you win that division, you have a home game wildcard weekend. We saw them reap the benefits of that last year, having the home game against the Chargers, making it to the division round.
Yeah, but that's not a bye, Dwayne Marcus. That's a playoff game.
But
so you play a wildcard team. Right. So think about it. the Jets. Let's say the Bills win the division. Let's say the Jets win the division or the Bills, whoever. You're playing either the Jets or the Bills, right? What about the Ravens? You think the Jags are better than the Ravens? Well, fully healthy Ravens now that Lamar and OBJ and that other kid they just drafted, their defense that they just, what about the Dolphins? We forget about the Dolphins. I mean, are the Browns? I mean, if you believe in Deshaun Watson.
So here's my thing. I think if you give me, I think for me, I'm not sold on the Jets. The Jets, as currently constructed, haven't won anything because they haven't played together. So I'm not.
Correct.
I am not of the like. I did it, and this isn't because I'm a scorn Packers fan. Like I did this. One of the very first episodes of the show was me talking about how I didn't think that Tom Brady and the Bucs would win a championship that season. They went on to win the championship that season. Like I said the same thing about the Broncos last year. I said the same thing about the Rams the year before that, and I was wrong about the Rams. I was right about the Broncos. Like I'm not one to just like they've got this new quarterback and all these new pieces and all like they're like that's not that's not me. But what I will say though is I think when you look at what the Jaguars had last season, I think we are going to see a better offense this year because I think Trevor Lawrence will be another year better. I think that Travis Etienne Jr., if he stays healthy, he will be better. I also think that Calvin Ridley being added into this offense obviously adds another dynamic because now you have Calvin Ridley and you have Christian Kirk and you have Evan Ingram instead of just like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram. No disrespect to Zay Jones. He's no Calvin Ridley. And the four of them collectively gives Trevor Lawrence more options. I am concerned about the defense because the defense isn't on the level as some of the other defenses in the conference. There's no denying that. But for me, I look at this as almost like addition by subtraction. Like if we're going to say that the Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs are the three best teams in the conference, which I don't think anyone would deny that they're not. Like two of those teams are going to have to play each other at some point. So like only one of those three teams can make it to the AFC Championship game. And only one of those teams has proven that they are able to get the job done against the Chiefs numerous times, and that's the Bengals. Not saying the Bills can't do it. The Bills have had, as you know, being a fan, some very unfortunate luck against the Chiefs in each of their playoff matchups. If we're looking at the playoff resume as of late, I have no faith that Aaron Rodgers can win a playoff game. Because Aaron Rodgers hasn't given us any reason to think that he can win a playoff game over the past couple of years. Lamar Jackson has a playoff win. I won't be sold on Lamar Jackson being able to win a playoff game until he actually goes out there and wins a playoff game in what is now a much tougher conference than what it was when he got his first playoff win a couple of years ago. We talked about the Browns. We can talk about the Chargers. They're all good teams. I think for me, though, the Chargers have a puncher's chance against every team in the conference overall, and there's only three teams I would like going into a game say they're going to beat the Jags. It's the Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, because there's so many questions about every other team. Like, can Lamar stay healthy? Can Aaron Rodgers get back to being happy and being himself? Can Deshaun Watson go back to being top 10 form and the Browns make it? Like, can the Chargers stay healthy and actually be something around Justin Herbert? Can Russell Wilson remember how to play football? Is Jimmy Garoppolo still that guy outside of like there's so many questions about all the other teams. I think the Jaguars are just in a perfect situation where all like the only thing that can stop the Jags this season, in my opinion, from reaching the heights that they can reach is themselves. Like it's just themselves just underperforming. And as long as Trevor Lawrence is playing his best ball and as long as everyone around him shows up to do what they need to do, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not picking them to make the AFC Championship game. That's not my pick. But like if they end up there just because of like other teams have to take out other teams. Like the Jags really only have to beat like the Jets or the Chargers and then like one of the Bengals, Bills, or Chiefs to make it. And I think they have what it takes to do that. I think we saw in the game against the Chiefs they had what it takes to do it, but then they lost their way in the second half, and that's kind of what was the undoing. But we were in a position in that at the end of that first half where the Jaguars could have actually sent the Chiefs home in that game. They didn't, but they could have. And I know, you say, well, if my aunt had a ball, she'd be my uncle. And that's very valid. Ifs are very dangerous. But the Jaguars are on an upward trajectory. I'm not picking them to make the AFC Championship game, but I do think just by virtue of situation, their road to the AFC Championship game, I would say, is one of the least resistance because the other top teams have to take out each other. Like they'll probably have another matchup against like a Dolphins, Jets, Chargers, and then they'll have to face the Bills or the Bengals or the Chiefs. And I don't think those are just guaranteed losses, especially if they play the Bengals. Because as much as I love the Bengals defense isn't that great. It's just
so. Let's assume the Chiefs are going to get the number 1 seed again.
sure.
Jacksonville is going to be the number 4 seed, right? We just sat there and said that the Bengals, the Bills, and the Chiefs are better than them. So let's say all 4 of those win the same divisions, and in some order, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The Bills were the new 2 seed last year. It could have been the Bengals. You know, there was a lot of weird things happening with the canceled game.
Yeah.
So do you think the Jacksonville Jaguars could have beaten the? You know, they would face the Chargers, which was the 5th seed last year. But now, again, the Chargers are going to – that's the first wild card team. It was Baltimore was the 6th seed. Miami was the 7th seed. Even if those same 3 teams, you still have the Jets, and you still have an improved Jets team. You still have an improved Ravens team. Now I'm thinking of the team that just – not the Ravens. Improved Chargers team with Kellen Moore. You have an improved Browns team. Pittsburgh. Right, there's teams. Pittsburgh almost grabbed that last wild card spot. So it's and then again, how do you feel about the Titans? You have to feel about the Raiders. Let's take out the Raiders. Broncos, since everybody's hype on the Broncos. Either way, that's another 4 teams. And let's say through the grace, and then let's assume that they make the playoffs as the 4 seed. Even if they win that game against the 5th seed, which again, we just sat there and talked about the Browns, the Jets, the Raiders, the whoever, the Titans, all these great, Jets. Then you play the number 1 seed, period, because you're gonna be one of the 2 lower seeds. That's the Chiefs or the Bill, or not but Chiefs, the Bills, or the Bengals. One of those 3 teams are going to be the number 1 seed. That's as far as you're going to go. Period. So no, you can't end up in the AFC title game, because even if you do through the grace, that 4 through 7 in the AFC is going to be the tightest. 4 through 7, more tight than the NFC, I think. Like them teams.
No, the NFC 4 through 7 is going to be very loose.
You think so?
Like, we're gonna get to that point, and when they start showing those graphics, and there's gonna be like 12 teams on the AFC graphic, and like 8 on the NFC. There's only a handful of teams in the NFC that actually have a shot of making it. Yeah. Like it'll be tight for different reasons. Like in the AFC, it's gonna be tight because there's a bunch of good teams. In the NFC, it's gonna be tight because there's like 3 or 4 good teams. Just by virtue of the way it works, 2 of them are in the same division. And then the other 3 teams will just get thrown in there because someone's got to win the NFC South. And then the other 2 teams are going to be like probably the Seahawks and the Rams, maybe. Like if we're just being honest, like it's so you look at the NFC, like we know who the playoff teams are going to be. I would say the only question mark is like the order and who's going to win the NFC South and North. But most people think it's going to be the Lions. It could be the Lions. It could be the Vikings. It can go either way. But NFC is tight for different reasons. NFC is going to be tight because there's just a bunch of not knowing once you get past the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Niners.
It's more likely that a team with a losing record is that's going to be in the playoffs because they win the division is coming from the NFC. So I think I agree with you there.
100%. It'll be what we're going to have, and it almost happened last year with the NFC South because we almost would have had a situation. I think where. I think if the Panthers would have won that game against I think it was the Panthers. The Panthers would have won that game in the regular season finale against the Bucs. They'd have been like 8-9, and they'd have made the playoffs as 8-9 team winning. So like we could see an 8-9 team out of the. I mean, we can just start talking about it now. Like we could see an 8-9 team out of the NFC South make the playoffs just because they win the division. I don't think we will though. I think the division. To me, the division winner is pretty clear. Let's hold the Falcons. There's a lot of hype around the Falcons. They have Bijan Robinson. We're hoping now that maybe Kyle Pitts is finally treated like the premier talent that he is, and he gets some quality playing time. The one question that we have to answer though is who the quarterback is going to be. And you and I both are in favor of Taylor Heineke being the starting quarterback for Week 1. What's the ceiling in Atlanta? Like, can Atlanta legitimately? And I know this is a bad division, so anything is possible. But legitimately, could the Falcons win this division?
Yeah. Hell yeah, they can win this division. Taylor Heineke can win games. He's a gunslinger. He's going to throw the ball. The Falcons want to do that, but they have Bijan Robinson. they're built similarly like the Washington football team that Taylor Heineke was captaining. And what happened until Ron Rivera messed it all up? They were going to make the playoffs, man. Like they were going to make the playoffs. And Ron Rivera couldn't remember that it was a 17-game season and not a 16-game season. And he, for some reason, pulled him out. And if you go back and look at those stats of that San Francisco game, Taylor, even though they were losing, Taylor Heineke actually had really good stats. He did not play bad. It was just I think the one interception was his fault. The other one was not his fault. It was a tipped pass. Receiver should have caught it, but he threw two really bad interceptions. But he's Taylor Heineke again. I'm not saying he's some hidden gem. He's been bounced around. He's an XFL guy. What I'm saying is he's the type of guy that can help. He's the type of guy that can win games for you and help you win games. Yeah. And as long as you have the things around him, and again, he made the smartest play. He drew a foul in an NFL game to beat the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. He did that, and so I like Taylor Heineke. So yeah, I mean, I think he should start, but they'll probably go with Ritter. I get it; they drafted him. Blah 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 blah. But I think the Falcons could win that division. I think Bijan Robinson could be a generational talent. He can bring the running back position back. Kyle Pitts, like you said, I don't know what they're going to do with Cordell Patterson. They'll probably have to find a way to replace Calvin Ridley, but we'll see, one step at a time. But I like the direction that the Falcons are going.
I do like what I'm seeing from the Falcons. They made a lot of key improvements, especially defensively, bringing in a guy like Jesse Bates. I thought that was pretty big as well. I think for me, we've been kind of getting there with the Falcons. I couldn't see the Falcons winning the division. I don't think they will. I could see it happening though, but they just have to get the quarterback part right. Like whoever is going to start, that decision I think is going to set the tone, because all of the games within the division are winnable games. And if you win most of those games, that takes the pressure off of how many games you have to win outside of the division to win this division. If you want to win this division, like the least amount of games you can win is you can win 6 games and win this division. If we're being honest, that's just how bad the division is. I don't think that'll happen though. But that's what can happen. I think for me, I want them to get the quarterback thing right. And to me, Taylor Heineke is the right guy for QB1. And it's not just because I like him, it's because he's the better guy. Like that, and this is no disrespect to Desmond Ridder. Again, like we have gotten to this point in the NFL where, and last week I talked about how we gotten to the point where mediocre quarterbacks can't lead you to championship. Great. We're also at the point now where like it is not a requirement for a first round quarterback to start on day one. Like that doesn't have to be the thing. And every year we learn a lesson from a new team or a new player. It's time for the NFL to learn the lesson from Trey Lance. Just because you draft a guy doesn't mean they have to start day one, or doesn't mean they have to start over some other guy that you bring in. That doesn't have to be the case. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Like there was a time we would see highly touted draft picks sit. We saw Aaron Rodgers sit for years. We saw Tom Brady was sitting behind Drew Bledsoe. Like it is okay for your young quarterback to sit and learn the system. That actually puts you in a much better position and makes the transition so much cleaner from veteran or bridge quarterback to young guy. You don't have to. So Desmond Ridder is obviously going into his second season. He doesn't have to be he doesn't have to start because it's his second year. He can sit behind Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke's not a bad guy to sit behind. He's not like this all-time great Hall of Famer that can bestow upon him all types of Hall of Fame knowledge, but he's been around the block a few times. He's been to a playoff game. He's been in some big moments, and he showed up in those big moments, and he's been a good quarterback. And when you have a young team, like there is really no difference between this Atlanta Falcons team that he is on now and the Commanders team that he was on then, except for the fact that this organization is run a little bit better. This is a young team that needs energy. Taylor Heineke brings energy onto the football field. There's no reason why he shouldn't be the starter. The only reason why you could possibly start Desmond Ridder week 1 is because he's your young guy. Like, because there's been, from what I've seen, there's been nothing leading there's been nothing hinting at the fact that Desmond Ridder has been playing better ball right now in training camp or preseason than Taylor Heineke. So Taylor Heineke should be the starter until Desmond Ridder's ready. And if Desmond Ridder's not ready until year 3, he's not ready until year 3. That's okay. Like it's okay for the young guy to not be ready. That's a part of the grooming process. That's a part of the training process and the player development process. And if he's not ready, then you get him ready. And until he's ready, you put the guy out there that is ready. And the guy that's out there ready right now on the roster is Taylor Heinicke. Taylor Heinicke should be the number one. And if Taylor Heinicke is QB1 from 1 to 17, I like the Falcons' chances to win the division because I think he's that good. I think he's good enough to get them there. I do.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at a stat. It was percentage of QB pressures that turn into sacks. 10% of the time is Patrick Mahomes, the best. Taylor Heinicke, then it goes Jared Goff, Flacco, Derek Carr. This is all time. Justin Herbert, Davis Mills, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, then Taylor Heinicke. So, I mean, top 10 is he's a gunslinger. He's a baller. He's a playmaker. So you got to maybe that's what the Falcons need. Again, I agree with you.
They've got players that can make those big plays and be at the receiving end of those deep balls and all that. Yeah.
If I had to guess, they'll probably go with Ritter to start just because he's the guy, and I don't agree with it. But I would not be shocked if we saw Taylor Heinicke at some point this season.
Yeah, I think even if Ritter's the starter, we'll see Taylor Heinicke step foot as the starter on at some point. Let's talk about the Saints. The Saints are, again, weird quarterback situation. Drew Brees retired. They brought in Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston played okay ball, but he did deal with some injury, and now they have Derek Carr from the Raiders. Nothing in life is guaranteed, but when you talk about it from an NFC perspective, we kind of did this for the AFC. From an NFC perspective, should the Saints be the favorites to win this division with Derek Carr as the quarterback?
I think they're the most complete team in terms of offense and defense. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I think they are. I think they should be favored. I think because who's their next? You have a rookie quarterback who's unproven with a team that just kind of retooled in the Carolina Panthers. We just sat there and talked about the Falcons, who have issues with the two quarterbacks, and you have a rookie running back and a team that just hasn't been very good. And then the Buccaneers, who are the Buccaneers, I don't know what they're doing, but not that I don't like Baker Mayfield, but he's not leading them into anything. I don't think Todd Bowles is a good coach either, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think the Saints should be favored to win the division. I think they're going to win the division. And I honestly think that the Saints should be expected to win double-digit games, like 10, 11, maybe even 12. The reason why is because this is a talented team, like on both sides of the ball. And you have for the first time since maybe let's give them the benefits out and say Drew Brees last season. Now for the first time since then, a guy that you know can go out there and deliver on a weekly basis. I think Derek Carr gets a lot of slack in his career because he played for the Raiders. I think a lot of pressure on Derek Carr because he wasn't doing that he was doing, but with the Raiders during Derek Carr's tenure was also one of the worst organizations in sports, and that's why they are no longer in Oakland, just like the Athletics and every other professional team that's ever stepped foot in Oakland. Because eventually you have to leave because Oakland is just not the place to be. Not the fans, because for some reason organizations go to Oakland and they die. They need to go elsewhere. Derek Carr, I still think has good years, and I know that he still has all in him. Derek Carr is by the best quarterback in this division, and I would say the Saints by far on paper are the best team in this division. Offensively, they have the offense. Defensively, I would say maybe you can make an argument about the defense, but I would give the Saints. When you look at DeMar, they had Tyrann on that. Have Jordan, who's had the most sacks in the league. I think since he's been in the league, like 106 and a half. I think is that the other day. This is a super football team, and my one concern is Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen didn't look last year. He didn't look last year as the head coach. Hopefully this year he kind of turn around and be better. But if Dennis Allen is better, then I would expect Derek Carr to come the Saints comfortably win this division and get back to being, and they can themselves in by default of being good and supposed to be the second tier in the NFC after once you get past. They'll be up there with the Cowboys once you get past the 49ers as like a team to be reckoned with that could maybe make a deep run because they have all the pieces. Just been missing the quarterback. I think they have Derek Carr this year. I do.
So the only thing to remember is that the Saints or Dennis Allen and Derek Carr were 3-13 last time they were together. So just put that in perspective.
That is true. I'll tell you this is a much better team than that team. They win 3-13. I hope so. You can't have Saints can't go 3-13. The Saints go 3-13. They can't win. They go like 3-14 or something, 4-13. That wouldn't be good. But I think they're set up for success. When you look at the division, the division isn't that great. You've got two super young teams that are trying to figure out your team, and the Buccaneers that don't want to admit that it's time to just blow it up. And that's the worst type of team to be, is a team that refuses to blow it up. Then you're just setting yourself up for failure year after year after year. The Saints, I think, are in a good spot. They have a good defense. They have a good offense. I'm a Derek Carr fan, and I think Derek Carr can bring good to the Saints. Playoff good. Just get him one play. Let's just get one playoff game in New Orleans for the first time in a couple of years. I think that's a successful season for the Saints.
So I don't want to pause this podcast, but your audio
it
sounds like a robot. Really? Did you do something different? And I can hear myself through your speakers.
You're the second person to say that. Someone said this to me last week. I'm not exactly sure what's happening.
Your last episode with the Unpopular podcast, his audio sounds the exact same as yours does now, and I don't know what that's about.
Oh my god! Well, I am in the market for a new microphone, so there won't this won't be. I'm changing the setup altogether. There'll come a point in time, probably in October, when I won't have this mic. I'll have my cable. It'll be different.
Well, it didn't. So it's weird because it just started like maybe 5 minutes ago, and
I don't know what happened. I haven't touched anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like really distorted. Like you'll find out when you watch this back. It just literally happened like 5 minutes ago.
This makes you want to not do a show next week.
Nah, I don't know what's happening. Man.
This happened last week. There was an echo, and then I think it kind of like went away. But now, I don't know.
See, I don't know. If you want to unplug your mic and plug it back in, I don't know what's happening. And I'll keep this thing going. I mean, with more Derek Carr talk. I mean. Now, I will say Derek Carr has looked really good in the preseason. Chris Olave looks elite. Mike Thomas. I can hear myself really loud now.
You can hear yourself right now?
Yeah, through your setup.
Through your setup.
But your audio sounds better.
Well, now I'm just on my I'm just like using like my computer thing now. I'm not even.
If you get some headphones or
I don't know.
But that's gonna bother me.
Dad.
Hold on. We'll get there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
This is live. We're live. We'll be all right. We can cut it. We can cut this out. Oh, so all right. Now I can't hear myself. Okay. So Chris Olave is elite. Michael Thomas finally looks healthy. They're gonna miss Kamara for a few games, but that's okay. They have Jamal Williams. Yeah. And then of course we just talked about the defense with Cam Jordan and all those boys. Listen, the Saints should win this division. If they don't win this division, something is extremely wrong, and I don't foresee that being Derek Carr's problem. So, to answer your original question, yeah, I think it also depends on which version of Derek Carr we will get. If he can play well in the structure, avoid throwing interceptions, which has been his crux, and if he can get the ball out quickly, which there really is an excuse because he has weapons all over the place, then he should win this division easily. If we get the Derek Carr that is skittish in the pocket, scared to throw the ball deep, makes really rash decisions, then we are going to get basically instead of a black and silver terrible Derek Carr, we're going to get a black and gold terrible Derek Carr. So it'll look a lot the same if he doesn't fix it. Jimmy Graham, I know he had some weird injury. He's old as dirt, but he should be able to help in terms of a security blanket. Taysom Hill still there? Is Taysom Hill still there to be the tight end Swiss Army knife? So the Saints are pretty loaded. I would think they would win the division fairly easily. I see them winning, and I don't think it's going to take more than 10 games to win this division. So I can easily see the Saints hitting that 10 to 11 games, as they should. Try to talk now.
Everything good?
Everything's great. Oh, you sound all right. We good now.
I switched to my AirPods. Yeah, we'll do that for the next couple until I just get a new mic. Yeah, this mic's been served its purpose, but it's time to go.
It's time to go. It's okay.
Yeah,
we'll troubleshoot it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I think. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And also, real quick, I know you talked about this a couple weeks ago on South by Sports.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints should be ashamed of themselves because that gold is not gold. I don't know what
it's not
that
gold.
is, but it is.
Yeah,
it's like a super light brown or something. It ain't.
Yeah.
It's like a
tan.
pastel light. Yeah, it's tan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, it sucks because like you want to say it's gold, but it's not. It's like
not really gold.
That's like when Commanders fans back in the day be like, you gotta love the burgundy and gold. Like it's not burgundy and gold. It's burgundy. It's maroon and yellow. Like it's not even burgundy. It's maroon and yellow. But whatever. Color arguments aside, quick story I will tell. So, and I'm gonna clip this and post it in my prom date. She's gonna see this and she's probably gonna hate it. So, when I went to prom in high school, my prom date wore a navy blue dress. And my dad, my dad's a suit. He loves wearing suits. He loves dressing up, and he's a color guy more than you would expect to be a color guy.
Dapper Dan, I like that.
Yeah. He kept going. He kept asking me like, we need a swatch of the blue so that I can make sure that I wear the right color. I'm like, Dad, like I don't like, dude, it's 2019. Like I don't think people are just walking around with swatches.
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, my prom date, she never gave me a swatch of the blue that she was wearing. And to this day, it bothers my dad because the tie that I wore to prom, it was like navy blue, but the tie was like a silk tie, so it looked shiny. So it looked a bit brighter than navy blue, and my dad hates it. My dad hates it so much. It was a whole thing because we didn't have swatches, and so it wasn't the exact shade of blue that I was supposed to be wearing, and it was my shoes were the right shade of blue. But my tie was not. He hated it because we didn't have a swatch. And so now every time I see certain colors that are supposed to be one thing, but they're not, I think back to my dad being upset that I never got a navy blue swatch from my prom date.
Need that. Hey, that's important, man. The ties, it has to match, man. My date, she wore like this bronze silky dress, and I had she wanted to do like a bronze and cream type deal. So she wore like a bronze silky dress, and she had these cream shoes. Boy, I had an ivory suit my uncle had got me these bronze sunglasses, or they were like bronze glasses, but he got sunglasses lenses and swapped them out for me. I didn't have a bronze tie. That would have been too much, but I had but I had like a bronze whatever the pocket handkerchief was, and my shoes were cream, but I had like a bronze like buckle on it that we had got. Oh my, it was swaggy, man. I gotta find pictures of it. I was smooth with it. I looked real good. So prom's a big time.
It was a big thing. Like every day after that, like every time he was like, we should have got a swatch. I was like, Dad, all right, like I get it. We should have got a swatch. Like I remember it for the wedding. We'll get a swatch. We'll get a swatch when I get married.
No, when it's wedding time, you damn near better have a swatch. I don't care if it's fake or whatever. Don't show up to your dad's spot without no swatch. I'll tell you that.
I'll make sure I show up to wherever my dad will be living when it's time to get married, and with a swatch. I'm like, here you go. Let's figure this out. But I just every time I think about colors not being what they are, it reminds me of that because it was a major thing. Like it was such a big deal to him that like I never got a swatch.
That's hilarious.
It's just it's such a dad thing to be concerned about. Like
100%. 100%.
My mom
he was living through you. He must have had a navy blue story back in the day. There's something deeper.
There's probably there probably is.
There's a deeper, darker criminal link at work here. You gotta ask your dad some questions about this navy blue swatch. I'd ask him.
Maybe I will. I will. Speaking of blue, it's about the Panthers. You've got Bryce Young. You drafted number 1 overall. Frank Reich, obviously the new head coach. He got his guy, which I think we all figured if Frank Reich was in Indy, Bryce Young would have been a Colt. Frank Young ends up in Carolina. Bryce Young is a Panther. Makes perfect sense. What would we, if you had to give out some expectation for Bryce Young, maybe from a stat standpoint or just in general, would you like to see from Bryce Young this year? What are reasonable expectations for Bryce Young specifically, and then like the Panthers as a whole for this year?
So I don't want to be a big stat guy and projection in stats. I think I would rather do look. I just want to see Bryce Young look comfortable in an NFL pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to make good decisions. So if in terms of stats, I just want his touchdown to interception ratio to be like some 2-1 or as close to it as possible.
Sure.
And I just want him to make good NFL decisions. College and NFL are different. I don't want to see a lot of wildly inaccurate passes. I don't want to see a lot of short balls. I don't want to see a lot of avoiding contact. Like I want to see him make really good NFL decisions. I don't know what fair, because I don't know how the team's going to perform around him. I would like to think they're going to be okay. They have Miles Sanders, they have Adam Thielen, they have weapons. They're actually pretty good. Like I don't know how the defense is going to perform, but it's just I don't know. He's either going to be a bust or he's going to be really good, and it scares me that I don't know which way I would choose. He's small. Like he's just a small. It's hard to gauge that. Like there's not a lot of small guys come and be successful. So if he can throw, completion percentage, if he can be somewhere in the 66 to 68 range, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
I think in today's NFL, you got to be somewhere around 70% just to be considered good. I know that was like back in the 10, 15 years ago. That was like, oh my God, if he throws 70%. But now everybody's throwing like 70% is the bar now. You got to be 70% like in today's NFL or you're not any good. So, or at least around there. So I don't know. I don't know what in terms of stats, because I don't know what type of offense the Panthers, they might run a lot and protect them.
They could.
Or his passing could be inflated. A lot of dump offs, a lot of screen passes that, the Jalen Hurts, they hyped him up. Oh my God, he had 158. He had 158 passer rating and 166.
Oh, the Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields when he had like negative 11 net air yards the other day.
Yeah, his air yards was like he had like -2, -3, -2 again. It was like -8, 9 air yards, but he had 166 yards
because they were breaking out for a big play. Yeah.
So I if you can't do that, I don't want to see that. But I just if he can be, I'm not expecting him to be 20 of 29 and 316 yards every game like he was in college, but if he can be a 65 to 68% completion percentage and keep his interceptions fairly low, he's going to turn the ball over. He's going to throw INTs because that's just how it is. But not expecting him to throw crazy amount of touchdowns. I'd rather him look comfortable. I'd rather him look like he belongs in the NFL. That's a good starting point for me. If I'm the Panthers and I want to see, okay, is this the guy or not? I just don't want him to see deer in headlights, Zach Wilson style. I don't want to see any of that. I want to see rookie Josh Allen, where there are some amazing throws, and then there's obviously, damn, he's a rookie throw. Like I want to see that. So like Josh Allen's rookie stats are not good, but you saw it. You could see it through all the mistakes he was making. That's good, and just if you can see that, Justin Fields is the same way. Trevor Lawrence was the same way to an extent. I have to see. Justin Herbert was the same way. The Chargers didn't take off running. Justin Herbert looked good, but something like that is what I would be looking forward to if I'm a Panthers fan from Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think Bryce Young is going to be in a good spot. I think, like, if you just take a look and you just kind of break down the team, you have Miles Sanders in the backfield, who is obviously coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had a career year with the Eagles last year. You take a look at, they have Adam Thielen, who is on the older side. Do I like that Adam Thielen is his wide receiver one? No, but Adam Thielen is a reliable target when he's healthy. The defense also, though, I think is going to be a pretty solid defense. You have Brian Burns up front. You've got J.C. Horn in the secondary. Like, this is a Panthers team where I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they're in the running and in the mix for a playoff spot, because I think as long as if Bryce Young is as advertised and Frank Reich really is a good head coach, then they should be in the mix around that. I would say the ceiling for the Panthers is winning the division. I think they can lose the division and still make the playoffs. I think they can still win 8-9 games, and that could probably be enough to get them into the playoffs as like the 6th or 7th spot in the standings, because I think they're good enough, and I think Bryce Young should be good enough as number one overall pick to take them, to where they need to be. The crazy thing though is that there's something you said that like sparked a thought in my mind, and I don't remember what it was, and I lost it, and I don't know what it was that you said, where you're talking about Bryce Young to even find it to go back, which sucks. Maybe I can think of it later and bring it back. But I think the defense is going to be pretty good. I like the offense. It's going to be a good football team. I would say that for Bryce Young specifically, though, coming from Alabama, I do think that does put him in an interesting spot, because you look at the other Alabama guys that are in the league. You have obviously Jalen Hurts, who he got drafted out of Oklahoma, but he is an Alabama guy. You have Tua, you have Mac Jones. I think if we're talking about pure Alabama products, so guys that when you look back at where they were drafted out of Alabama, I would say that Bryce Young is in a really good position to be the first Alabama quarterback in a super long time to win a playoff game. Might not happen this year, but it can happen eventually, because I think I do think Bryce Young is that good, and I do think he will be as advertised. I'm not as concerned about his size as others are, because Joe Burrow has small hands and he's done well for himself, and Drew Brees is one of those all-time great quarterbacks that was on the smaller side, and that's who a lot of people compare him to, not just because of the number 9, but also because of the size. I don't know if he will be as accurate as Drew Brees. I would like to think, though, that he will have better arm talent than Drew Brees. I think that is what the edge he has on Drew Brees. But like you said, like the accuracy point, it's a great point. If you're not accurate in today's NFL at around 65, 68%, you're not a good quarterback. That's just where we are. Like, there's too many guys that are hovering at around that 68%. Where like now it's like you see a guy complete 62% of his passes, and it's like that guy sucks. Like, he needs to get it together. Yeah. But it's like, and that's just because where we are. Like a couple years ago, that wasn't the case. Like 62% passing was super, super good. And a lot of it had to do with Drew Brees, because Drew Brees has completed the most percent of his pass in the history of football, and he's set like the single season percentage mark every season the last like 5 or 6 years in the league, because he was just that accurate. A lot of it had to do with the fact that he was his yards per attempt wasn't as high as some of these other guys that were heaving it down the field. But if Bryce Young is an accurate quarterback that makes good decisions and trusts the system, not only will that be a good thing for Bryce Young, not only will it be a good thing for the Panthers, but it'll mean that the Panthers are probably winning football games and putting themselves in a position to make the playoffs. I think if Bryce Young is as advertised, this team can be a playoff team. Because the NFC, like we said earlier, it's not that tough.
It's not that tough. And a team with 10 wins, maybe even 9 wins, could win it. So, if all things, as you were talking, I was thinking about actual stats, and I had to go back and look at the last couple of Rookie of the Year stats. Mm-hmm. And so if all things are right, everybody's healthy, Bryce Young is as advertised. If he can throw somewhere between, I don't think he's going to do 4,000 yards. If any Carolina fucking quarterback does the 4,000 yards, I'd be shocked. Yeah. If he can be somewhere between 35 and 3,800 yards, I think that would be about fair.
Yeah.
20 to 25 touchdowns, 10 to 15 interceptions. I think that's a pretty good starting mark. I think that would be a good rookie season for him. I don't know if it's be enough to win Rookie of the Year, but I think that would be, if I'm a Carolina Panther fan, I would be happy with that. The touchdowns obviously in the double digits is high, but he's a rookie. And we just talked about the bones of Adam Thielen. They don't have any real good wide receivers. That'll change, I'm sure, in the future. But, He's not really known as a rusher, but if he can rush for 300 yards every season, that'll help him. I can see the Panthers, if everything goes their way, winning 8 or 9 games. I think that's a good area for them. Again, I don't know if that's good enough to make the playoffs. I don't know if it's good enough to win the division, but I think having a winning season with your rookie quarterback is an excellent start.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 8 or 9 games if the Saints drastically underperform is good enough to make the playoffs because they would win the division in that case. But even then, like if you look at it, so for me, you've got the Eagles, you have the Cowboys, you have the 49ers. I think those are the 3 teams that are locked in. Then you're having a discussion about, okay, well, can the Seahawks do it again? Me personally, I don't think so. There's a lot of people that do. I think the Saints are a playoff team, so that's like 4. Then it's like then it's like Lions or Vikings, and it's Seahawks or Rams, and then it's like, can the Panthers? So again, like they're in the mix because they have enough. Like they have enough in the NFC. If they were in the AFC, we wouldn't be talking about playoffs. We'd be talking about they'll be good enough to be second in the division. They are good enough if everything goes as it's supposed to, and if Bryce Young is as advertised or better. If he's better than as advertised, then we're talking about a super high ceiling for the Carolina Panthers in year 1 with Bryce Young. Bryce Young is as advertised and do everything as expected. Like you said, 35 to 30, 100 yards, 20 to 25 touchdowns, 10 to 15 interceptions. That, to me, would speak of, unless they're just getting outplayed on the other side of the ball defensively, that, to me, says they've probably won 9 to 10 games, maybe 8 if we want to be generous, and anywhere from 8 to 10 games in this division is enough to win the division. If they win 9 games and they come in second place to the Saints, in the NFC, a 9-win season should be enough for the 6th or 7th spot in the conference and a playoff game on the road. So I think whether they're first or second in the division, they'd still have a puncher's chance to make it into the playoffs this year as long as Bryce Young does what he needs to do. Last topic of discussion in the NFL South episode of Go Talk with Marcus is Baker Mayfield. Now, it is hard to say that a player will never get another chance again because you get a guy like Geno Smith who finally gets one chance and he goes off. But all things considered with Baker Mayfield, considering how he started to where he is now, is Tampa Bay Baker's last hurrah in the NFL?
Last hurrah in what sense? As a starter?
Yeah, as a starter. Yeah. So I'm sure he'll get like a backup job. Is this his last chance to be a starter in the league?
No. The Baker Mayfield is like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He will always be better. He may not be like better than most of the starters, but he'll be better than most of the backups. And honestly, he will continue to get chances like he's done because he'll have that magical game like he always does, like Ryan Fitzpatrick did. Ryan Fitzpatrick every year, is his last year as a starter, and he's started for half the teams in the NFL. It's just there will always be a place for a guy who will win you a couple games in the stretch. Period. Yeah. Maybe not come out of camp as the starter, but he will be a starter for more than a quarter of the season for any given team.
Sure.
And I'll be honest with you, man. I've been watching some Tampa Bay preseason. He looks pretty good. Can't lie. I know people keep playing that one throw that he overthrew when he first got there.
Yeah.
That's the one that everybody keeps playing because everybody hates on Baker. So they'll play that one time he overthrew a receiver because he's the only quarterback to ever overthrow a receiver in practice. I don't know if you knew that. Baker Mayfield is the only quarterback ever to overthrow a receiver.
The only one. No one's ever done it. Tom's never done it. Peyton's never done it. Just Baker. Yeah,
just Baker. But I've watched some. I mean, Ty is a huge Bucs fan, so obviously he keeps me up to date on everything Baker's doing, and Ty's excited. He's actually, really excited for Baker. Matter of fact, he's more disappointed in the team. He's like, I don't think this team is good enough for Baker. Like he's like, it's like opposite. It's like an opposite thing. But he's I like Baker Mayfield. I like his attitude. He's a player's player. You know what I'm saying? Like he's gonna ride. Like he was out there headbutting Rams player. He knew he wasn't gonna be on the Rams after that last season. He was out there headbutting Rams players without his helmet on. Yeah. And so I will always cheer for a guy like that. Baker Mayfield will always get a job in the NFL because he's selfless. For a guy who gets a bad rap for being a selfish player, he's very selfless when it comes to his teammates. He's a ride or die. And yeah, I'm not going to say his confidence, his swagger, all that stuff will always get him an opportunity to come to a team and earn a starting job. Even if he comes in as a backup, he will play at some point because the team that'll bring him in obviously needs quarterback play. And so, the Bills aren't going to bring him in. You know what I mean? The Chiefs are never going to bring him in. So he's always going to go to these bottom barrel or on the fringe teams, which more than likely he's going to get an opportunity to start because he's good. He's not great. He's just a good, solid quarterback.
Yeah. So this was my position on. So here's my thing about the Bucs. In Jameis Winston's last season, when he was the first quarterback to go 30 for 30, which is still ridiculous to me. And he also led the league in passing yards that year. He had over 5,000. The Buccaneers were 7-9 that year. The year after that, they maybe won 10 games or something like that. And they obviously go on to win the Super Bowl. And my one point that I kept beating down about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at that point is if they would have gotten a quarterback, any quarterback that didn't turn the ball over that much as Jameis Winston, didn't have to be Tom Brady, they could have made a run for it because the Bucs were a good football team. Their undoing that season when they went 7-9 with Jameis Winston and his last year was Jameis Winston's 30 interceptions. Baker Mayfield is not on the level of Tom Brady at all. Not just all time, obviously, but like what we saw from Tom in Tampa Bay for those, 3 years? He's not on that level. But he's also better than the last time we saw Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay. As long as Baker Mayfield holds on to the football and doesn't just gift 30 possessions to the opposition throughout the course of the season, the Buccaneers will be okay. I think what we have to talk about, and I think maybe probably what Ty is alluding to, is this team is old and they're injury prone. Chris Godwin has injury history. Leonard Fournette, and I don't even think he's on the team anymore. He's got injury history. Mike Evans has injury history. Levante David and Devin White have been dealing with injuries, and Sean Murphy Bunting. Like this entire team has been dealing with injury. And so, for me, what I look at is the Saints are the most complete team in the division, and that is why I think the Saints are going to win the division. But the Buccaneers are the team where if everybody's healthy and Baker plays Baker Mayfield football, the football that took the Browns to the playoffs for the first time in eons, that Baker Mayfield, what was that, 2020 Baker or 2021 Baker? That version of Baker Mayfield on a healthy Bucs team can make it to the playoffs and win this division. The problem is it's been a while since we've seen that Baker. That Baker flashes up few and far between. This team is old and they have health issues. And so that's why I can't comfortably say that I think that this team is going to make any noise. As far as this being Baker's last chance, what I would say is I do think that Baker Mayfield has officially reached a point in his career where every time he steps foot on the field, he's auditioning for the other 31 teams in the league for just in case they need to pick up the phone and give him a call in a pressure situation, right? Like you were mentioning, like they need him to come in and maybe be a bridge guy, or they need him to come in and back up the young guy in case the young guy's not ready enough, or maybe they just had somebody get injured and need to come pick him up and trade for him, that type of thing. I don't know if Baker will get another chance again to be in a position where it's his team. Like, I think this is it for Baker, and unfortunately, this is not a good team to be your team because they're on the other side of Tom Brady. They've had their Super Bowl. There's still a little bit of expectations, but the team is hurt. They're getting older. Like, there's a lot of culture change happening in Tampa Bay, and it's going to be tough to replicate what we saw Tom Brady do in Tampa, which is, of course, make it to the Super Bowl and then go to back-to-back playoff appearances after that. It's a super tough thing to do. Do I think he could do it? Not the Super Bowl, but do I think he made the playoffs? Yeah, I think he made the playoffs. But this is the last time I think Baker's going to be put in a position where this is his team. And even then, this isn't Baker's team. This is just another instance of another team in the NFL not wanting to fully hit the reset button. And they want to try to salvage whatever they can and hope that maybe they can catch some lightning in the bottle and pull a fast one off on the league and get a championship out of this, which they won't. Baker Mayfield is going to be the quarterback now where teams go to him to say, all right, let's see if we can kind of push back the rebuild a couple more years and see if maybe we can try to sneak some cheap playoff success in here and get some cheap seats in here. Like that's what this is for Baker's. Like, even this isn't really Baker's team. It's just the Bucs would rather have Baker Mayfield than Kyle Trask, and I don't blame them because Kyle Trask is not good. He's not good.
I was looking at the teams at the bottom of last year's, just the worst teams in the league. So Baker has a chance, and it's one chance after this because he's only has a 1-year deal with the Bucs. Obviously, they could re-sign him after this year. If they're middle of the road, they're not going to get Caleb Williams, right? So because that would be the guy.
Yeah.
So technically, I feel better about my answer. Like I think if the Bucs are bad and Baker plays good, he can re-sign with the Bucs. Why not? But if he does move on, he has an opportunity to start with, let's say, in Arizona. Nobody's happy with him and with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray could be moved on. Houston just drafted their quarterback. They're going to be a bottom team. The Colts just drafted their quarterback if they're going to be a bottom team. The Falcons, if Desmond Ritter's the guy, can they bring in a Baker Mayfield and kind of do what they did with Taylor Heineke? The Rams, right? I know they got Bennett, but he doesn't look very good. But if Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford's on his way out, the Rams can bring him back. Sean McVay likes Baker a lot, and the team liked him a lot. Titans, we just talked about the Titans earlier. If they move on from Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis, Will Levis, I'd rather have Baker. The Washington Commanders, Sam Howell, if he struggles, they ain't got nothing else behind him. They shouldn't have let go of Taylor Heineke. Bears got their guy. Raiders got their guy. Panthers got their guy. So that when you talk about the bottom, right? And then now we're getting into like, it can't be the Broncos. They're not going to. They can't move on from Russell Wilson. He's there.
Yeah.
The Packers, Jordan Love. I don't know. So and those are maybes, right? Like those are maybe guys. So I mean, I will agree with you that the chances are maybe not because the chances are limited. There's only about 3 or 4, maybe 5 if you want to talk yourself into it. Realistic teams for Baker to walk in there and start. But if he plays well and the team doesn't do well, then I don't see why he wouldn't be with the Bucs again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to talk sports with Jerm, whether it's on Stuff About Sports, whether it's on Go Talk with Marcus. And the beautiful thing is, whether you want to watch me and Jerm together or you want to watch me and Jerm separately on our respective shows, you can find us both in the same place on the Give Us a Shot Network. So make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network and follow on all the socials. There's a lot of cool stuff happening, including the debut of the Protect Our Queens podcast on September 12th, which is a Tuesday. It's the night before the WNBA playoffs. It is at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am not at liberty to say who our first guest is, but I can tell you that we have secured the guest for that live show. An announcement we made for that. We've also actually secured our first 2 guests. And so there's that. So all things women's basketball, not just WNBA, but high school, college, and WNBA, talking all things women's basketball on the court, off the court, ins and outs, all the nooks and all the crannies. That is where you can find me. Also, I will make an announcement before the end of the month about Go Talk Market specifically. I mentioned earlier in the month on the 2nd that I was going to make an announcement about how I'm going to celebrate 3 years of Go Talk Markets. There will be an announcement made at the end of the month in regards to that, and it has to do with money. So, yeah, just know that. But it's gonna be some fun stuff happening. Yeah, Jeremy, got anything else before we get out of here?
Nothing, man. Just subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. You can find Go Talk with Marcus, Stuff About Sports, and all the Give Us a Shot Network podcast anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, whatever. Just search Give Us a Shot Network, and you can find all of us there. Please leave us a 5-star review so we can win some awards.
And remember, I just lost what I was going to say. It wasn't going to be funny. It was going to be super cool. But I forgot it.
Get your dad a blue swatch.
That's what I was gonna be. I was gonna make a swatch joke. If you ever need hey, look, all you high school seniors this year, okay? Yeah. You make sure you get a swatch, so you don't have to go through what I went through. Okay, and if you don't get a swatch, you get to hell.
Say hello.
Tell our bros we said hello.
Yeah, hell yeah.